Hey, welcome in. Boston has entered the chat. If you love this show, first of all, thank you. Secondly, check out Hold My Banner on Nesson as well. Ante Campbell and I break down everything Celtics, everything NBA. Never a dull moment on Hold My Banner. Check it out. It's available on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, Amazon, and wherever else you get your podcast. All right, here we go. Boston has entered the chat. Yes, we have. Travis Thomas here with Kasey Hudson. Can we just talk about this sweater going on here? I'm loving this Bruin sweater.
The Friends hooked it.
I see. The back.
Get a
rotation.
There we go.
That's all right.
There we go.
That's nice. That is nice. Good camera work there.
That was the collective B-Day gift from the Tampa Bay crew.
Wow.
So it was nice.
I
Nice
love
little
that.
surprise. They told me it's okay
Yeah.
to be a Bruins fan. That's what that felt like. It was therapeutic.
It is therapeutic, just like this show.
Exactly.
Case. Usually when you and I get together, I end up venting to you about all my problems.
I am a good listener, I am told.
That is the truth.
Do I register
Yeah,
everything is a whole different conversation.
I understand. Coming up, does anybody want to come to the Patriots as a free agent? I mean, honestly, someone in the media said that the answer is no. So Case and I will tell you who and what they said coming up. Plus, Andrew Ference caught up with our Hockey Hub peeps to talk about what the trade deadline feels like from a player's perspective. And we'll look around the NHL and tell you what contenders should add what at the deadline. But remember, I always say this, Boston has entered the chat, is interactive. So tweet at us using the hashtag NessonChat. You can also email us, thechat@nesson.com. Are you ready to get into this case?
I'm ready to dive in.
Okay, well.
Suited up for the Swan.
I teased this that a local media member said something. Tom E. Curran is the guy. Come on down because.
Drop the name.
Yeah, you got a name drop every now and again. Now, he was on the Patriots Talk podcast, and he said this about free agents not wanting to come to New England.
As I was thinking about this earlier today, we're talking about the Patriots being in a position to acquire some of these guys, and we're going to hear a lot of, hey, the Patriots are in on. Well, why aren't they landing them? Because players don't want to come here. The players are looking right now at the Patriots like Siberia. Whether it's Ayuk, whether it's Calvin Ridley, they're not at a point yet where they're in the running for players. I mean, that's kind of scary. They're just waving money around from the street. They're not even getting to the front porch. Look at us. That's really jarring, I think, when you think about it.
But don't you think it's maybe changed a little bit? Has it not changed, do you think,
I don't know.
from last offseason?
To a degree with Vrabel, McDaniels, and May, and the money aspect, but then you keep getting these little shots in the knee, the NFL players poll, the fact that Kraft ends up 31st among the owner ratings. The fact that when you really look at the team and you go, my God, look at that offensive line. There's one player, Mike Onwenu, who's probably under contract that is going to be there. Is going to be there in August. It's and Andrews to a degree. I did my offensive line, but I just think
he's banged up. He would even acknowledge he's not. There's some uncertainty in terms of what he's going to be able to do.
We're perceiving the Patriots as being able to be in on these players because of the amount of money they have, but I think every single player is going to look at this team, a DK Metcalf, a Davante Adams, a Cooper Kupp, and they're going to have to swallow hard and say, do I really want to do this just for the money? Because I hate to say it, fans, the tradition is a little bit gone.
I cannot wait to get your thoughts on this because I am diametrically opposed to this entire thing.
I was going to say.
I never buy players. I'm not going to say they don't care about it. That's too harsh.
Right.
But I never buy players making decisions based off of tradition and yesteryear and
not in this year.
This roster spot and this guy and this person and I can hang out in this part of town and I can eat at this restaurant. Let me be clear. Players care about the cabbage, baby, the money. They don't give a damn. I think New England is a great destination because they have to overpay. Like, there's some truths in what he said.
Right.
I don't think it's a desirable place. A lot of people, when you think of here, think about the weather and think about, there are things that take away from coming to New England, but the money, honey, is too good to pass up. I never believe this narrative. Nothing against Tommy Kern. I think he does a great job. I don't care who's saying it. I never believe it when they say, well, players care about this, this, and this. Here's the other thing about this. I want to find out which one of these guys know ball and actually do their research, because Drake Maye can play. Christian Gonzalez can play. Mike Vrabel can coach. So there are some things here. Josh McDaniels can call plays. Like, there are things here. And, oh, yeah, did I mention the money, Kasey?
No, I think you hit the mark on the money, maybe hinted at it a bit. But, no, I couldn't agree more, especially once he said the word Siberia. Like, Siberia, dude? There's no way.
It's so harsh.
Yeah, like, I get it's cold. I'm even still having a bit of a shock to it all. But, like, not Siberia. When you're looking at the contract opportunities, you're like, okay, do I want to pay these taxes? Oh, but the club's got money. Do I want to be freezing cold and play outside? Oh, but the club's got money. Outside of that, tradition has changed in terms of how infatuating it is, because the era has changed. People are chasing money. People are chasing fat contracts. Players at early ages are requiring fat contracts that work in favor for them, that are going to pay them out to where if they wake up one morning at 26, 27, 28, they have the luxury of resigning from the position, retiring, as we're seeing some guys under 30 retiring. So Siberia doesn't stand out to me in this category. It's in tradition. While, yes, there's teams that like to have an appeal because of what they once stood for.
Sure.
It's not the topic of conversation when it comes to contracts and wanting to play. And I would actually go further to be like, the reason I didn't agree with that is because Mike Vrabel is a player's coach.
Right.
That has a whole different appeal these days to a number of guys and players. So does this roster have that one sexy player that's like, yeah, I got to play with this guy. I want to play with this guy. Not so much. You know, Drake Maye is kind of young. He's working on his leadership and some parts of his articulation as a leadership. But outside of that, Vrabel alone it should be a draw-in. It's how long are you willing to wait to get to that postseason? How long are you willing to wait for that potential championship run?
You're preaching. Honestly, like, some of this, too, I think you and I are actually uniquely qualified to talk about this aspect of it, being from not in the market.
Right.
Like, being out of the market. So I grew up in D.C. and Maryland, right? And when my agent called me about an audition at Nesson, I knew the Nesson brand, so I was fired up.
Right.
That part of it was an icing on the cake thing. I wouldn't have came here for less money. Like, I'm not breaking news with that. My bosses know that. So would I have made a lateral move here? Probably, because of the brand. So it matters, the destination and the tradition and some of those things. But that's the icing on the cake.
Right.
The cake is the cake. You following me? Like, I never buy this. Like, oh, well, you know, no one's going to go there and it's not a destination. Like, of course, Miami with money. If the Dolphins come to you with money, yeah, you'll probably pick them.
Tax-free is a destination for a lot of players these days.
But it's not to say I just don't believe that players are turned off by coming here. Now, we'll see, because they do have a ton of money to spend this offseason. We know that. Today, officially, DK Metcalf has requested a trade from the Seahawks. I mean, listen, that's a trade. It's not free agency, but that's someone. Maybe, I don't know, there's reports the Patriots are not interested, but we'll see now that it's official that he's available. All of a sudden, well, maybe we are interested. The Seahawks were busy. They released Tyler Lockett, you know, a guy a little longer in the tooth, a little older in his career. Is it a cash grab? Is it like, listen, I already won a Super Bowl.
Right.
So
he's a blue-collar dude.
Right? So let me go get some money, help these young receivers kind of come up in New England. Christian Kirk got released with the Jaguars. There are guys to be had on the lower end of the paycheck, if you will. And we know the big fish, right? We know Chris Godwin. Casey's in a glass case of emotion about that. Davante
He's not allowed to come here. Stop it. Y'all think I'm kidding. Where's the border for Massachusetts? I will stand there at 5'1" and not let him in.
Well, your team's the one not keeping him. They ain't acting right.
I'm trying to talk to the right people, okay? Like,
all right.
Y'all stop. Leave Chris Godwin where he's
Correction. Let me start that over. Chris Godwin's off the market because Kasey's making the calls.
Because she's standing at the border.
Yes, Davante Adams, Ronnie Stanley, who I'll tell you this story real quick. I had a Ravens fan who's a good friend of mine. I guess we put out a video from Foxboro Rush. You can check it out on Nesson. Talking about Ronnie Stanley, right? And I said something, I get a little crazy. I said something along the lines of give him a blank check and a Brinks truck. We need him, right?
Right.
So my buddy who's a Ravens fan texted me and he goes, you guys can have Ronnie Stanley. He's always off sides. I'm like, we don't give a damn about that. Have you seen this line?
The same way the Chiefs didn't give a damn about Donovan Smith and all his offside costly calls, but guess what? He helped.
Like I said, you are preaching. Now, of those names I laid out, outside of Chris Godwin, who we know you will block personally, do you think any of them think, well, I'm not interested in New England because it's New England, or do you think they're going to look at the money and go to the highest bidder?
They're going to look at the money and they're going to look at the situation. And here's something else about kind of like the touch on tradition. Tradition can change. And you've got a guy who's a culture-focused coach now running this organization. So that's the other part where you didn't really hook me with that one, because Mike Vrabel is going to create tradition here. He's going to create something. That is the content of his character. So I think it is still appealing in a sense. You got a player's coach. He stresses relationship. He stresses connecting with his players. He has a clear, concise direction in how he wants this team run. That's a buy-in in itself. Now, I know I joke around about not letting Chris Godwin even touch New England. Sorry, y'all. But in a realistic perspective, could Chris Godwin look at this team and find appeal? Absolutely. You're talking about a complete slot king. You're talking about working with a coach in McDaniels where Chris Godwin's going to get to flex the way that he gets to. And I know George and I talked about this a little bit on a previous Boston is End of the chat where he mentioned, the injury could be a little bit here and there. Guys are bouncing back different these days as long as they're taking care of themselves and how advanced medics are. So I'm not concerned about that. Godwin can get money. He can find stability. He can see longevity in terms of his career. And on top of that, the player's coach, the buy-in and the direction. He's going to get something that he tasted in Tampa Bay in a different market, and he's going to be able to put more than 3 years to it, because I think that that's going to be the next appeal. When you talk about tradition and everything else, it's going to be like, okay, not only are you going to pay me, but how long can I work on my career? Because you want to give this team a 3-year window. Yeah.
Well, that's probably also, to your point, at this stage of his career, what we're working with here. And he's got to get healthy, of course, coming off an injury. Okay, walk with me.
Walking.
Tyler Lockett, Christian Kirk, who are available. I'm not trying to be nice here. I don't think either one of them are good enough. I'm not interested. Christian Kirk was overpaid before by the Jags. I've seen that.
You don't think that organization dragged him down, though?
Of course it did, but he was not worth. I remember when he signed that contract thinking, really? But it was the market. You can't get mad at him. Don't hate the player.
Yeah.
Hate the game.
Good money distributor.
So Christian Kirk, I just don't think is good enough to make a difference on your roster. Tyler Lockett is too old. I'm not interested. Too many miles on him, and he's not the player he once was. He looks older than some of these other options who I'll get to that I like. I like Chris Godwin, and I like the fact that you are open to the idea of the fit here, and you would get to cover him. So it's great for you too, selfishly.
I would. I love him and his wife, honestly.
So there you go. So Godwin, I think, makes sense. And you say, well, Trav, he's old too. Yeah, but it's not the same. Tyler Lockett did not age as well as Chris Godwin. Godwin, my only concern, coming off injuries, can you stay healthy at this stage of your career? I'm not saying he's going to come here and put up number one wide receiver numbers, but I do believe, unlike Christian Kirk, unlike Tyler Lockett, I think he can come in and help your young receivers. I think he can be a mentor, a veteran, a savvy veteran, teaching these guys how to be more productive, teaching these guys how to be pros, all the whilst being productive.
Right.
Like, that's what I need from you. You're not going to give me Jerry Rice numbers, but just give me something, because my wide receiver room stinks. To that, you say what?
To that, I add, you're talking about a guy that learned under New England's truly, Tom Brady. So he learned a lot of great things because Brady did come in and apply what he learned and what worked so well in New England to Tampa Bay, number one. Number two, Godwin learned a lot about leadership, so he can help out the young room. But, I mean, age injury, I'm not counting out his production. I mean, anyone in Tampa Bay can vouch for this. It was significant, the absence of Chris Godwin, and you still had a Mike Evans on your roster. This is a guy that has the capability, and like any slump in production that he had over the last 3 years, oh, by the way, last year, they didn't have him fully functioning in the slot. You applied to his strengths, he's going to put up the numbers for your team. And I think that he has the leadership quality, he has the grit, he knows how to overcome adversity, he's been a part of soft rebuilds, so he has all of the gears to come in here and be a good fit. And I think that as much as I don't want him here, I'd ride with it.
Okay. We're walking together. We're out on Lockett. We're out on Christian Kirk. We are both in on Godwin.
I wouldn't hate a veteran tight end to come in, though.
Okay,
Something's
I'm
off with Henry.
I'm with that.
Yeah.
Davante Adams, though, doesn't do it for you, right?
I don't think it fits.
Okay.
I don't want to say culturally. Like, I just think that where he's at in his career right now, he wouldn't be able to be as selfless as.
Okay. So, not the same player that he once was production-wise, and maybe a little too me. Like diva status. Yeah. You don't want that around Drake Maye, right?
Yeah. And look, he has a reason to be, because then you go from the Packers, you go all the way out west, you have all this chaos and confusion when you're playing for the Raiders. You're the workhorse of the Raiders. If you're not the one bleeding on the field, nothing's getting done. So like there's support to his attitude. I just don't know if that attitude would be supported here in a Mike Vrabel locker room. But the connection between him and McDaniels, maybe.
Okay.
Maybe.
All right. I'm going process of elimination here. We are in lockstep so far. Now, let's go to the trade market. I know we're talking free agents, but DK Metcalf's available.
No.
I mean, Cooper Kupp. I don't know. Look, DK Metcalf, I think the price would just be too much. I don't know if I'm willing to give up what it would take to get a DK Metcalf, even with him. Whenever these guys force trades out of there, like the price goes down a little because teams know the Seahawks are desperate to get this dude out of there, and we know the dude wants out, right? But I still, because of a player of his caliber, think the price could be a little too high. I'm not against making a move for DK, but I would need to see the price of it, and my gut says it's a little too high. But he is a great player.
Yeah, well, okay, so it kind of touches back to top of this conversation when I was like, they don't have that like that sexy player on the roster.
Right.
This is something they can bring in on the branding side that's like, this team's going to have something worth watching outside of like a potential soft rebuild conversation. So that can help. My concern is with you on the money. Again, if you're looking at this team finding that key success within a 3-year scope, not immediately next year, you're going to want a lot of money to come in and like be patient. And like when you request a trade out of your club, that doesn't really scream patience to me.
Yeah.
So it tells me that he's going to want to go somewhere where he like feels more of an immediate to the situation versus like he's going to come in, have a young quarterback, all these different moving pieces. Like there's going to have to be humility for anyone that wants to come in and grab some money and also be a veteran presence and leader in this group.
Okay. So we're both lukewarm on DK, but we're open to it. And, I mean, the Patriots have money to spend, so they are balling. But if you want to ball on a budget, Cooper Kupp is in a similar situation, just saying. Let's quickly go Ronnie Stanley. There's no conversation to be had here, right? Like, that's a guy. Pay him whatever. Like I told my Raven friend that texted me, have you seen the Patriots offensive line? We don't give a damn about those false starts. We'll figure that out. That can be coached out. We need that guy to be a left tackle. Ronnie Stanley, I am willing to pay whatever the hell he wants, Case. I would be the highest bidder if I were the Patriots. Would you?
Yeah, well, what's one of the first things Tom said? Basically that this team is unappealing not only because of Siberia, but because of that offensive line. I can't get over it.
That really got to you.
It did. I'm like, of all the things, Tom, you're awesome, but Siberia? Why? Why is it so far off? Especially with some of the destruction in the AFC. Like, okay, so I'm sorry, guys. Let me get over the Siberia situation. With that being said, he followed it up with, like, one of the unattractive points of this team is more than likely that offensive line. If nothing else, yes, there's some young pieces. Yeah, they might look in the draft to add to, but again, the window of what they're trying to accomplish or like start accomplishing, you're going to need some big veteran presences on that offensive line.
I'm still laughing with the Siberia. You know what? I mean, Case and I will tell you, Waltham is nice this time of year. Okay?
You know,
ain't no Siberia over here.
Don't disrespect it. We had a heat wave over the past
right.
couple of days.
Tell
I
him,
went outside.
Case.
I went outside without a puffer on.
Yeah. You heard her. Hey, more NFL news and notes in 30 seconds. Stream the entire Red Sox season with a NESN 360 annual plan. It's available at an all-new reduced price of just $20 a month, paid annually. And for a limited time, get 4 free tickets to Fenway with your purchase. Visit NESN360.com to sign up today. All right, Case, you know the drill. What's trending? 3 stories in the world of sports, 3 minutes each to break them down. And we're going football heavy today because we have so much news and notes. So let's start here with the big one. Did you see the Raiders re-sign Maxx Crosby? Listen to the cabbage. 3 years, $106.5 million, including 91.5 M's guaranteed. Crosby becomes the highest paid non-quarterback in NFL history. This is so fitting to our conversation because you just said, yes, like tradition matters. What you did in the past matters, but it's about the money. This is a perfect marriage of both.
Yep.
Where the Raiders were once great, long time ago. But it is the Raiders. It is Vegas. Mm-hmm. And did you hear the numbers that I said? 106.5 and 91.5 guaranteed. I think that says it all.
This one hurts because I got to meet Crosby last year.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, really, really nice guy.
He looks like a large human. Is he?
Well, you can't ask me this question. I'm barely 5'1" on a good day, so everyone is a large human compared to me. But like, was I really craning it to like? Hey, what's up, Crosby? So, yeah, for sure. He's a big dude.
A lot of tats.
A little soft-spoken, too.
Really?
Yeah, which is crazy surprising.
He's full psycho then.
Yeah,
He
so
plays
he's
like
got
a
that
madman.
gear.
Yeah.
He's got that gear.
Yeah.
You don't trust people like that in a funny way. Like,
Right.
he's a sweetheart. But he's looking for stability in this part of his life. I actually got to sit in on a conference that he did advocating for mental health and stuff like that. So I think just considering all of that, and I know you're thinking, Las Vegas, no mental health there. No one wants to be there for more than 48 hours. It's just more so the fact of like trying to be a part of something where he's appreciated. He's had such an interesting career and life off the field. So the money had to be the grab here. The term had to be the grab here. The stability had to be the grab here. But it goes back, like we said, this tells you how players are looking to solidify and concrete their life over what's the Raiders tradition right now?
Nothing
What
now.
is the appeal to the Raiders team? Because their staffing might get a little sorted out here, but like that's a big might.
Vegas,
and then we
I
don't know
guess.
what their roster is going to look like. I
Yeah.
mean, they got a really cool tight end. Y'all know I had to point that out.
Right.
And Vegas is Siberia.
Yeah, exactly. That's I don't know. I mean, they do have Tom Brady. You got to always give him that, right? I agree with everything you said. I actually, I'm going to tell you who I thought about when this first happened. And it might surprise you a little bit. Is Myles Garrett. And what I thought about was Myles Garrett got a bag or two from the Browns along the way. Mm-hmm. And he played his whole career there, and he was happy until he wasn't.
Yep.
I'm tired of losing. Well, he's rich as all get out. He's the greatest Browns defender ever, and now he's ready to go win. That's exactly what I thought here. The Raiders stink, but if you're Maxx Crosby, play the game, literally. Get your cabbage, and then get the hell out when you're old and ring chase.
Hang 10, man.
Right?
Hang 10. Yeah.
And by the way, I wouldn't bet on this, but if the Raiders, unlike the Browns, can figure it out along the way, you're already a rock star, and then you can win with that team. So
Right.
I don't think that's going to happen. I think when he gets old, he'll leave.
Yeah,
But-
no, he's got to go. I mean, the one extra appeal, and I know that there's like a crosshair here, is like Pete Carroll, but like
Yeah.
I've got a love for him from my brother's time. So yeah,
No one chews gum quite like Pete Carroll.
Wow.
I tell you what.
my gosh, his teeth
He is
must
an-
be the strongest teeth.
He's an aggressive gum chewer. Our buzzer operator doesn't like the dentist talk. Bears acquired. Thank you. Bears acquired offensive lineman Joe Thuney from the Chiefs. Get this for a 2026. Seriously? I'm just trying to make it to Friday. A 2026 fourth-round pick. That's it? This guy's a Hall of Famer, Case.
And Kansas said bye-bye.
I mean, what?
Honestly, I would love to know what more of the back talk was on this situation because, like you said, I mean, this guy was all pro, Hall of Famer, a lot of ad, and the Bears were in desperate need.
Yeah.
I mean, hopefully Bears fans don't get too excited here, but hopefully this gives them something to be, I don't know, a little optimistic about because the amount of plays that we saw just completely crumble because the offensive line was non-existent for this team. He should give you some hope,
Yeah.
I would say. But
I would think.
how the Chiefs moved on like that, I'm curious.
Yeah, I mean, from what I saw, it just seemed like he's obviously older and it was a money thing, and they wanted to free up some money. Patrick Mahomes, it feels like restructures his contract every 5 minutes to free up more money, and so I just think they want to sort of get younger, probably a little cheaper on that offensive line, but they still need to get better. Obviously, we watched the Super Bowl. I mean, Mahomes was running for his life, and all the Super Bowls he's lost. That's been the case.
Yep.
Hello, Tampa Bay.
Heyo.
See what I did there?
Call their name.
As far as the Bears end of this, I actually think of the Patriots here. Like the Bears and the Pats are both in the same boat right now. They both have young, dynamic, we think could be great, but right now good young quarterbacks, new coaches, trying to establish the word Kasey used earlier, culture in both of those franchises. Obviously, the Bears further along in the weapons for their young quarterback.
Yes.
But both teams have absolute sieves at the offensive line. So kudos to the Bears for addressing that and improving that. And Thuney's at the end of his career here. This is back 9 for him. But you get an opportunity to play with a young, great quarterback in Caleb Williams, or we think could be great. And it's obviously a Bears. We talk about tradition, right? The Bears. So good spot for him. I think the Chiefs did right by him. They didn't send him to Siberia. If you are playing a drinking game with that word, congratulations.
Take a shot.
You are hammered. So I think it's, in a weird way, like this is a good move for both sides. It's rare that happens, right? Where like this team fleeced this team. But in this case, I think it's a win for the Chiefs and the Bears.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. And I mean, I love the comparison of the Bears and the Patriots because honestly, like I mentioned earlier, like it's not always an appealing idea to be like, let's get a veteran on the line, but it helps. And like what I saw at Tampa Bay, especially because they went from having a great offensive line, a fractured offensive line, to like young guys having to run things. 1 year under a really solid offensive lineman that you can learn from, it translates. So Tristan Wirfs will attest to that in a number of ways. And you're talking about one of the best of the best of the best out there. So when you're looking at longevity for the Bears to build off of, bring this guy in, have a veteran presence, make sure you build correctly underneath him so that his knowledge and career flows over to him. And rookies feel deep breath having a veteran on that line, especially it's rookie quarterbacks. It is. And like if you want to get them to their prime release, you've got to settle their nerves in the best way possible. Put a veteran in the mix.
Amen. I'll say this at the buzzer quickly. I mean, Patriots need offensive line help and they need receiver help. Thuney goes for a 4th rounder next year. Deebo Samuel went for a 5th rounder this year. Patriots, wake up! I mean, what are you doing? Other than that, Sam Hubbard announced he is retiring from the NFL after being cut by the Bengals. So he spent 7 years there. He grew up in Cincinnati, played high school ball, college ball. He is Cincinnati, okay? Sam Hubbard gets cut this morning and then decides by the afternoon, you know what, I'm done. This was crazy, Case, because in real time, I saw the news about him getting cut this morning. I'm getting ready to come into work and do the show with you, which you know I'm always fired up to do. By the time I got in here, he retired. So I was like, oh, this is clearly tied together. Like he was like, you know what? Instead of leaving my hometown and living my hometown dream here, I'm done. I'm just gonna retire. He's only 29.
That's the part that really
tossed me. What are you doing,
me.
bro?
Yeah, that's the part that really tossed me. And I mean, numbers haven't matched really since 2021. And a part of me was thinking, I wonder what the conversation was on the back end here, because I keep saying that, but you're talking about a guy that's still a pretty force to be reckoned with. He's a part of a team that he didn't have any help to be that force. And then you get to be in the town that you grew up in and everything that you just mentioned, and you're 29 years old and you're ready to hang it up. So was that like, if I can't play here, I'm not going to play anywhere kind of move?
Yes. That's what I think, because Look, if he has a history of concussions, I hate to. I always use Tua as an example, and I always
He's a
feel
prime
bad.
example,
But like, can we be honest? If this is Tua, then I get it, right? But like, I looked this up, and some of these guys get concussions, and it's never diagnosed. We've learned that too, right?
Yeah.
I know they're trying to get better, but it happens. He plays in the trenches. But I couldn't find any history of concussions with this guy. So at 29, and Casey's right. Like, you could go help someone. You're a really good player. He's not some Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
He's a really good player. Case, I think he could probably get 2 or 3 more contracts.
Totally.
He left a lot of money on the table here just to stay at home. And I don't want to put all your business in the streets, but you're a military kid.
Yeah.
You've moved around. I stayed at home. I didn't leave the nest till much later in my life, and it was one of the best things I ever did coming here.
Yep.
You have moved around. It's okay. Like, you can leave your hometown. I'm not trying to. I know a lot of people have never left here, and that's fine. I'm not knocking anyone.
Right.
But if something presents itself where you need to fly away and leave the nest, it's okay. You're going to be just fine. Some of this stuff's like, bro, come on, seriously?
Right.
Like, you refuse to go anywhere other than Cincinnati. You bleed it that much. Like, you own a home there. Just go back home anytime you want.
Yep.
Go play in New England or wherever. But, like, leave the nest.
Yeah. No, I couldn't agree more. And I'm glad you painted that picture, because that's what stands out to me with the timing of, we're not going to bring you back into the fold. Oh, all of a sudden I'm going to retire. Like, I just feel like I feel like he's leaving things on the table. I think he's leaving play on the table. I think he's leaving money on the table. And this felt like a very emotional counteraction to something that he wasn't expecting or didn't think that they'd go through with. So.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure he's hurt. And by the way, some of this could be emotion.
It's emotion. It's all
right?
emotional.
Some of this
It's all
is just like,
emotional.
there's a possibility in a week, let's just put a number on it, that this guy sits back and he says, you know what? I miss playing. You know what? New England's got all the money. That loudmouth guy on TV there said I should come there. He's right.
He can handle the cold, so welcome.
In 30 seconds, Kasey and I gracefully skate to the ice. But first, want to hear all about Boston sports? Well, check out Nesson's Daily Sports Podcast. Boston has entered the chat. We lit! And you too can enter the conversation by tweeting at us using the hashtag NessonChat, or you can always email us, thechat@nesson.com. Boston has entered the chat is available on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, Amazon, and wherever else podcasts are found. All right, Case, Andrew Ference talks to our Hockey Hub peeps about what the trade deadline feels like from a player perspective. We always talk about it from the media. We hear from coaches, but let's hear from a player's perspective what it feels like.
You know, talking to you about, your career a little bit in the National Hockey League and as a captain to close out your career with the Oilers. You've experienced, playing in different cities, being traded from teams as well. And we got the trade deadline coming up, in the National Hockey League. This episode drops on Thursday, and, the trade deadline on Friday. What is that like as a player, knowing that you could lose some teammates, gain some new teammates, and maybe even get traded yourself at the deadline? What's that like for a player?
It's weird. I never got used to it. That's for sure. Obviously, like when you feel, the ability, or I guess the chance that it might be you, it's, I don't know. It's just kind of hanging over everybody's head, to be frank. I mean, it's obviously different when you're on a successful team versus a team that's not doing so hot, because, on the Bruins, you're always kind of thinking like it's additive, but they're not going to make a huge disruption. Because the team's playing well. So we're going to add, but we're probably not going to lose, major pieces of the team. But when you're on a team that's not doing so well, like everybody feels like they're on, they're on the block, and that you could be, packing up and moving to a new place. I've never been traded right on the deadline. My probably closest would be obviously when I went from Calgary to Boston. Getting traded just in general is weird. I was on a road trip. We played in Buffalo, and we're on our way to Detroit. So we had just finished playing in Buffalo. We're sitting in the parking lot with the bus running, like ready to go to the airport. and it was taking a long time. It wasn't moving. And so that was weird on itself because, NHL buses are usually on time to the second. If you're late, grab a taxi. So we weren't moving for, a good 5-10 minutes. And then the assistant coach came on the bus. I was sitting close to the back, with my buddies and teammates. And he walks back and stops in my seat and says, "Andy, we traded you to Boston. So you're staying here tonight." And that's it. Like, that's it. That's how a trade works. And I'm not unique. Like, there's guys that find out, from the TV, or there's guys, guys find out in different ways, right? But that's how I found out. Like, walks back, you're traded. So literally, like, all right, see you guys that I've gotten to know over the last few years and went to the finals with and made friends. That's your family, right? And so you grab your bag, go down, literally, like, pop open the door on the bus, grab my gear, bus drives off. I stay at a hotel, fly to Boston the next morning. So that's how a trade works. Like, it's wild, right? Like, and then you call home, you're like, "Hey, FYI, I'm not coming home."
Yeah.
So, let's start figuring this out, right? Like, and so, yeah, that trade, my daughter was 1, so that's pretty easy. Whatever,
right.
People can, it's part of the deal, right? But when kids start getting into like school age, and you got the family doctor and you got the school, and it's just all these different kind of moving parts, right? So I think that's why you see the appeal of these no trade lists and no movement clauses. It's like just peace of mind, man. Like, not especially when you have kids, and at school age, it becomes really tough, right? So, yeah, from a personal point of view, it's more about the life stuff than the hockey. I mean, you can walk into a hockey locker room and kind of pick up,
right.
Somebody from junior hockey, somebody from playing each other, from training in the summer. Like, it would be really weird to walk into any room and not know somebody. Like, the hockey world's not that big. And so that part's the easy one. You have an immediate kind of family just like that. But yeah, it's just the severing of ties from, really emotionally investing yourself into whatever team you're with, and then just kind of ripping the Band-Aid off and, going somewhere new. It's odd. But losing teammates, I guess from that point of view, like, if you have an ounce of empathy, like, you
right.
you feel for them because they're going to go through that. And then the other part, bringing somebody new into the room, that's the easy part. I mean, I think that's you have the trust of a GM every time. Obviously in Boston, we did it. We brought in some great people on the run. You're thinking of Chris Kelly, who's obviously still there, and Rich Peverly. I think they came in right at the deadline. Just incredible pickups. They're great people, and when you have a strong culture and a strong room, like, that's the easy part. Like I said, for guys to just pick up and jump on the moving train, I guess.
Yeah, and that's got to ease the blow a little bit, right? When you're going to organization with so much history and so much success and so much promise for a future and some foundational pieces as well. I mean, that's got to ease the blow of getting traded a little bit when you're in a situation. Again, you guys didn't win the cup until a few years later, but they were sort of building something, right? With bringing in Zdeno Chara, bringing in Claude Julien, bringing in all of these different elements to try to have that translate to success. That must have been, at least something to look forward to as well, right?
In hindsight, yeah. I mean, for sure. Like, looking back on it now, you're like, oh, that made so much sense.
Right. I guess that's true, right?
I think at the time, I had the year previously went to the finals with Calgary, right? So we lost to Tampa. So we were building up something there. Getting traded to Boston, I think they had missed the playoffs for however many years. I think 7 out of the 8, and had half full buildings, maybe just more than half filled. And nobody wore Bruins stuff around Boston. You wouldn't see the hats, the jerseys if you went down through Faneuil Hall or something like that. Like, you just didn't see it. And so it was different, for sure. And I think that coming in, like, you have, you get to know the new coach, you get to know Claude. Have the meeting with Chiarelli, new GM. I actually knew Z from junior hockey. He played in Prince George when I was down in Portland. So we both played in the Western League and crossed paths in Edmonton, during summer training. So I knew Z previously, and obviously how solid he was. So you could see, like, what they're trying to do, whether or not it's going to work. You don't know.
Yeah, it's different, right? Yeah.
So like I said, hindsight, that was brilliant. Like we nailed it. But at the time, like there's a lot of nerves, right? Like, there's pressure. You're in an original six that's not doing well, and it's a half-filled building. Like that's tough, man. Like the pressure's on. The other teams are winning. What if we don't succeed at what we all want to do, right? Like, so there's a lot of pressure. I think we responded. We had the right group to deal with that pressure and to deal with that, those goals that we set for ourselves. Like we knew we had to make Bruins fans proud of the product again, right? And I think our approach was probably the right one. Claude was great. Those early meetings about what we actually were trying to accomplish. Just get into the playoffs, like no matter what, like we just need to get into the playoffs. But before that, like the goal was literally like, can we make these fans proud, of being, Bees fans again? Like let's play a style that even if we lose to, one of the top teams in the league, like we're going to beat the crap out of them and we're going to be so hard and we're going to be blocking shots and hitting everything and fighting when we need to and standing up for each other. And like, even if we lose some of those games, like at least people are going to walk out of here and be like, all right, like I like these guys, because that wasn't happening previously, right? Like, no. That's the source of, I think every city has a certain identity and a certain style that they like, and it is different from city to city, So I think that in the Bruins case, like you got to build a team that fits the city and fits the fan. It's no different. Like you think of Philly, right? Like there's an identity that goes with certain clubs and certain teams, and when there's a mismatch or a misalignment, it's just off.
Yeah, and there are players that just don't fit, right? Sometimes, in that certain situation, right? It's just not a right fit, and that can happen too. But for you guys, ended up fitting just fine and winning a cup in 2011. I know you've told this story before, but we got to revisit it in case, people aren't aware, right? So 2011, your game-tying goal, Game 4 against Canadians, the glove malfunction, right? Which wasn't a malfunction. And there's a cool story behind that where, I'll let you tell it. Where is the glove and how did it come to be?
Build up, I guess. I never really knew much. I grew up in Canada, so not a whole lot of interaction with like the U.S. military. So but coming to Boston, actually, we did some military games, and I can't even remember how some of our relationships started. It might have been through the Dropkick Murphys. So, I love punk. I'm, punk fan. Dropkicks were awesome. So going to concerts, and I think through them, like some mutual friends, I made some really good friends in Boston that still to this day I'm very close friends with. One was an Army Ranger, another is a cop in Cambridge now, but he was also in the military. But Nick, who's a cop now in Cambridge, he was on duty, huge Bruins fan, but he was deployed out in Afghanistan during the Cup run, and so he was just dying. He's like, oh, the time change, right? To watch the games and stuff like that, and obviously, not being able to partake in all the parties and just the energy of what was going on in Boston during the run, right? So I think he was feeling very far from home at the time. But they actually even flew on the base. I think they're in Kandahar. I might be getting my facts wrong here, but they flew like a Bruins flag up on the base and stuff like that. And he saved a couple of the American flags that they flew, during our games, and gave them to me. So, anyways, he was just an awesome guy, and you can send care packages to people that are
overseas,
deployed.
Yeah, right.
And so I put together a care package for him with like a bunch of candy and like little things from home and stuff like that. And then right on the top of the care package of the box, I made sure to position it. So I put the glove that I gave the finger with in Montreal. So I positioned it right on top. So as soon as he had opened the box, it'd be my glove giving him the finger. So I put the fingers down and everything like that. And so I just died because I was just waiting because I know this package is probably going to take like a month to get there. And I was just like, oh man, it's going to be so funny when he opens up this box in the middle of Afghanistan. I'm giving him the finger from over here. So anyways, Nick's got the glove. He brought it back. I don't know where he put it. It's probably in the cop shop in Cambridge.
That's awesome. That's fantastic. Yeah. Well, yeah, and you're also probably hoping that it doesn't lose the form, right? Because it's got to take so long to get there. You're hoping it stays molded into how you position it in the box, right?
I put stuff around it. I was very, very strategic. Like I said, I placed candy and all that kind of stuff around, make sure that it was locked in there. Awesome. And it gets stuck, as we know.
Yeah, right. That's what happened, of course. Right, yeah, it got stuck. It's unfortunate, that these things happen with equipment sometimes.
It was going to hold its position no matter what.
Right, exactly. As you sip sinisterly from your Boston mug.
Catch Adam Pellerin's full interview with Stanley Cup champion Andrew Ference on the latest episode of NESN's A Hockey Hub podcast. You can find it on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, Amazon, and wherever else you get your podcast. Remember, Boston has entered the chat, is interactive. Let us know what you think the Bees should do at the deadline. You can always email us at chat@nesn.com. Tweet at us using the hashtag NESNChat. All right, Kasey Hudson, every time I am with you, I must talk hockey with you.
Thank you.
Now, trade deadline's approaching. We have talked the Bees every which way possible. But what we haven't done is really zoomed out and looked around the league. Mm-hmm. Who are some of the names? Who are some of the teams? New faces, new places that you think could happen by the deadline?
Yeah, and it's coming up very quickly. Yep. I know that one of the top names kind of getting kicked around here, especially because of the initial surprise in season, Mikko Rantanen. It's where is he going to go now? It doesn't sound like he's sticking around in Carolina. And it's interesting to think that, like, there was the Finnish connection. There were some connections there where you thought that he'd be okay with his career being maintained in Carolina, but that doesn't seem to be the case. The last thing I heard that kind of had a bit of a stronghold on it, I believe from Elliot Friedman, was that the West Coast was becoming a destination for him and that the Kings could potentially use him on his roster. I could understand this to a degree because you're talking about a Kings team that tends to come out pretty stout defensively, especially throughout the top of the season. You're talking about a Kings team that makes it really hard to score on them, and then things start to fall apart. And it falls apart because they rely on the same 2-3 guys to get scoring done, and scoring depth is so crucial. Rantanen's a playmaker. He makes things happen. He could feed the puck. He can find the back of the net himself, and we see that after he gets acclimated in a system. So I also feel like he's going to want to go back against Colorado. So I can definitely see him heading out west. On another leg, Brock Nelson. And I feel bad because he just had a super emotional interview. You can tell that, like, he really does not want to leave Long Island. And it says a lot because Long Island, New York teams right now, they're kind of really struggling identity-wise. And you're talking about a veteran presence that he's been a 30-goal scorer still. Last season, put up 30. That's not an easy feat, especially at a player at his time of his career. So he can bring in a leadership presence. If he has the right supporting cast, he can go for another, the season right now, he can't be a 30-goal guy, but he can give you another year or two or a bit of a boost. So he'd have to stay within the East, but it doesn't sound like he wants to move about. And you just don't know too many teams, at least in that top 5 when it comes to the East, that are looking for that kind of veteran presence,
right,
if we're being honest. If they are, it's more on the back end. When it comes to scoring, everybody wants to try to match toe-to-toe for speed, and then everybody wants to try to go toe-to-toe for bringing in some depth scoring. So even though I said he can probably lean towards the depth scoring category, the age and everything's not that appealing. So maybe the Isles will try to find a way to appeal to them, since they're such a mess in terms of, like, what their identity looks like, because there's no build there.
Yeah, I actually look team-wise. I look at some of these playoff teams, like the Panthers, right? They're loaded. They're such a great team. They're a complete team. But with Tkachuk out, I think, like, they have cap space. Do they make a move for a forward? Do they get a defenseman? Maybe. I don't know. The Maple Leafs always choke come playoff time, and it's usually because of defense. And I feel like every trade deadline, I'm like, go get defense. And they don't. This could be the one that they decide, hey, you know what? We should try to add some defenders here and maybe not choke in the playoffs. They still will. But here's a big one. I want to run this by you because you know I'm crazy. I really like this Kings team.
Oh.
And they are top 5 ranked in defense. Their defense is always solid, but they can't score. They're like bottom half of the league in terms of rankings for scoring.
Unless Kempe's doing it.
I know that there's an injury concern here, but am I crazy to think the Kings pick up the phone, call Boston, and say, hey, Brad Marchand, getting towards the end of the career, give him a chance to win here. We'll restructure something in terms of the money. Is that worth a call from the Kings to the Bruins? Would you entertain it?
No.
So I'm nuts.
Yeah, just a little. On the little side. The only reason I'm kind of like, the picture painting was fantastic.
Yeah.
The adjustment to the West Coast play and stuff like that, I couldn't really see if Marchand really did move on from the Bees. I feel like it would stay, within the East. To be impactful, that is, because the degree of separation and where Marchand's play would come in and what the Kings need, I couldn't imagine it being an immediate boost. And that's nothing against Marchand's play or where the Kings lie. Like, there just needs to be another piece there that works alongside of Marshy there. Outside of that, though, you're right. The Kings need to add to their scoring ability because it can't just be Kempe. I mean, I thought Fiala, he's in the mix. He's been tremendous. I wonder if the Kings can have a little conversation with the Buffalo Sabres.
Oh, who we talking there?
I wonder if there's some, I feel like I butcher his name all the time, Alex Tuch.
Okay.
I feel like he could be a fit in the terms of, like, there's chemistry, there's old ties between some of the players on that roster and stuff. So, like, you go there, you work with guys that you can elevate their play, but you can get the job done too, because he's done it a lot for the Sabres. So I wouldn't mind him swinging out west. I mean, it seems he was tied to the Lightning heavily, but, it sounds like the Lightning are going in a different direction, and they're not going to still try to reach for him at the same time.
Well, one thing's for sure. No matter what happens at the deadline, we'll be with him every step of the way, keeping them posted. By we, I mean really she, because she's the best in the game. For Travis Thomas, Kasey Hudson, we thank you for entering. Boston has entered the chat with us. Till next time when we ask you, enter it again. Peace.